Hollywood, California.
A city built on dreams.
A dream that brought the masses seeking fame and fortune.
Most never made it.
Only a fortunate few did.
But fame comes at a price and often was accompanied by tragedy.
For many, life ended far too soon at the peak of their careers.
Some believe the pain and suffering of the failed and even the successful have caused them to stick around.
Even after death.
Making Hollywood one of the most haunted places in America.
Tonight we will be discussing some of the more famous haunts in the Hollywood area as we plan and prepare to visit and investigate the ones that interest us most.
Join us on our journey to the truth as we try to find proof of a haunted Hollywood.
My name is Trevor Heasley, and with me is
James Killebrew
and
Adrian Tabag.
And also
Peter Eaton.
Knights of the Spooken Way. What do you know about the Cecil Hotel?
First of all, one of my favorite shows that I'm really into recently is American Horror Story, and I really got into that season of The Hotel. And I found out that that hotel was based somewhere in Los Angeles. And so I really was excited about finding out where this hotel is.
The goal of this show is to take everything we've been able to find and put it into one place. So instead of having to go everywhere on the internet to find this information, you can just listen to this one show and be kind of educated as to what we're going to actually do on the episode where we show up and investigate. So do you guys want to talk about the history?
Yeah,
let's do it. Let's dive into it.
Cultural references to the Cecil Hotel. On March 27th, 1987, the band U2 performed an impromptu live concert on the rooftop of a one-story building on the corner of 7th and Main in downtown Los Angeles. Next door to that was the Cecil Hotel. The Cecil Hotel is featured prominently in the background.
Now, is that the video, The Streets Have No Name?
It is. It is. And so most of America knows of the hotel as the backdrop for one of the most famous YouTube videos ever made. It was also the inspiration for a Coen Brothers movie called Barton Fink. You guys ever seen Barton Fink?
I have, yes. The movie was about a New York playwright who got lured by Hollywood to come become a screenwriter. I'm thinking where this is in the 30s. He comes, and it's a huge adjustment for him, and he stays at this hotel that appears to almost be haunted somewhat, and a lot of strange, eerie things happen.
Here are the facts of the Cecil Hotel.
Designed by the world-renowned architect Loy Lester Smith.
The Cecil was built in 1924 by hoteler William Banks Hanner.
It was opened in 1927. Originally was to be a destination for business travelers and tourists.
It cost $1 million.
Wow.
The address is actually 640 South Main Street, Los Angeles, California.
I would bet at least one death has happened in every single room. This is the number one place that people talk about when you say ghosts in Hollywood.
All right.
It's pretty lavish. Lots of marble, stained glass, right?
They were really going for the upscale crowd.
Right.
The Beaux Arts.
Now, does anybody know exactly what year the Great Depression was?
1929.
1929,
100%.
It was supposed to be this huge moneymaker. Like
Right.
they spent it was one of the most expensive hotels built in LA. And unfortunately it was only really active for a handful of years before people lost everything. Then Skid Row was formed.
Was Skid Row the result of the Depression?
Skid Row was the result of the Depression.
That's
news.
I didn't know.
So you have 10,000 homeless guys living at your front door.
Wow.
Like how lavish can you be as a hotel? Like the money stopped flowing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Roaring 20s
Yeah.
preceded the Great Depression. The stock market had reached its zenith. And people were trading like crazy. Money was flowing. The wall, it was crazy.
Wow.
That's why they call it the Roaring Twenties. But then
dude,
immediately after,
champagne, alcohol everywhere. People were partying, and then all of a sudden, their heads were just cut off.
Yeah.
Like they had no financial resources. People who were once rich became down and out and
overnight.
poor.
Overnight.
And people jumped from tall buildings. It was all over the place.
In 2007, parts of the hotel were redone, and new owners took over.
And then in 2011, the Cecil Hotel was rebranded as Stay on Main, complete with a new website. Its old website, thececilhotel.com, expired at the end of 2013.
Only 3 signs have been changed on the building, and that is on the canopy out front. The very front and the sides.
Well, the canopy.
Everything else is the same. Yeah. But if you go online, you can no longer find Cecil Hotel. Yeah. It is now called the Stay on Main. Wow. They have completely separated themselves.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In 2014, the hotel was sold to New York hotelier Richard Bourne for $30 million. Simon Baron Development, another New York-based firm, acquired a 99-year ground lease on the property.
In 2017, in February, the Los Angeles City Council voted the Cecil Hotel a historic cultural monument. The building is a representative of early 20th century American hotel art, only because of the gentleman who designed the building, Loy Lester Smith. Because he became famous after designing the Cecil Hotel.
Really?
That's the only reason that hotel is still standing to this day.
Wow.
Now let's talk about some of the reasons why they may want to demolish the building and start over. Cecil Hotel, the timeline of tragedy.
November 19th, 1931, Manhattan Beach resident W.K. Norton, 46, was found dead in his room after ingesting poison capsules. A week prior, Norton had checked into the Cecil under the name James Willies from Chicago. Checks to his wife was found in his jacket.
September 1932, a maid found Benjamin Dodish, 25, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. He didn't leave a suicide note.
In late July of 1934, the third suicide happened when Army Medical Corps Sergeant Louis D. Borden, 53, was found dead in his room at the Cecil. He slashed his own throat with a razor.
Wow.
He left several notes. Most of them cited poor health as the reason for his suicide.
March 1937. Grace E. Margro fell from a 9th-story window. Her fall was broken by telephone wires which were wrapped around her body. She later died at the now-demolished Georgia Street Receiving Hospital. Police were unable to determine whether Margro's death was the result of an accident or suicide.
So in January of 1938, United States Marine Corps fireman Roy Thompson, 35 years old, actually jumped from the Cecil's top floor, and he was found on the skylight of a neighboring building. And he had been staying at the Cecil for several weeks. So it's really, somebody like that, of that caliber,
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine the Marines is to be able to even endure that kind of training and be a fireman, which is a whole other level of toughness, in every sense of the word.
Right.
So he must, that's just wow.
Navy officer Irwin C. Neblett, 39, who was found dead in his room after injecting poison. And I've just found that he had injected strychnine poisoning.
Oh, wow.
So, and he was a U.S. Navy radio man of the 2nd class, died of strychnine poisoning inside his room, and police found a sealed letter addressed to Dr. D.C. Neblett of Staten Island. Police did not open the letter, and instead it was sent along with the corpse to a mortuary in Long Beach. And Neblett was buried in Tennessee.
Have you been able to find the actual letter?
No, I
All right,
haven't.
like you're actually finding a whole lot more information about some of these than I found. I was like, dude, I did my homework, so dude,
Right.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I found
Thank you.
this great website actually, Bazaar LA. It's basically going through all of the it's going through all of the deaths. So there's
Nice.
more information that we can expand on, I think, on this website.
January 1940. Teacher Dorothy Skeeger, 45, ingested poison while staying at the Cecil and was reported by the Los Angeles Times to be near death. No further reports were published about Skeeger's condition.
Now, one thing you got to understand too is this hotel is right off of Skid Row. A lot of people are going to be committing suicide, doing drugs. So there's deaths in pretty much every hotel in the Hollywood, Los Angeles area. The Cecil is the one that beats them all by about 4 times. So, I mean, not only does it beat all the other hotels, but it runs laps around them. September 1944. Dorothy Jean Purcell, 19, was sharing a room at the Cecil with her boyfriend, shoe salesman Ben Levine, 38. She was pregnant. She went into labor, thinking, or so she says, that the baby was dead. Purcell threw him out of the window. The baby landed on the roof of an adjacent building. Purcell had claimed she had no memory of the incident, that she was either possessed or mentally confused. She didn't see any prison time. She went to a mental hospital instead.
Wow. You know what, guys? This is really sad, but the county autopsy surgeon, Frank R. Webb, declared that the baby was born alive because his lungs was filled with air.
Oh, no.
Isn't that awful?
Wow.
This is what it says in the newspaper. In bold letters, bold capitalized letters, it says, Dorothy Jean Purcell, 19, whom coroner's jury recommended be held to answer on charge of throwing her newborn baby to his death from window of downtown hotel. She is in hospital prison ward. So this was announced in the newspaper.
In 1947, Elizabeth Short, dubbed by the media as the Black Dahlia, of which there's been movies, books, etc., was rumored to have been spotted drinking at the Cecil's bar in the days before her notorious and to date unsolved murder. And
wasn't there something like 150 suspects in that case? And a lot of them actually came out and said, like, I did it, which made the investigation really hard when everybody's like, I killed her. So they spent most of the investigation, instead of proving somebody did it, they spent a lot of their investigation disproving the people who said they did it.
Right.
Like, I think that's one of the reasons why it went unsolved.
You know, it makes you wonder, like, you know, it's pure speculation.
Yeah.
But, you know, were these intentional red herrings thrown to throw off the scent?
Right.
You know, and, you know, because if, let's say, well, take, for example, I mean, I can't help but think of Jack the Ripper murders. I mean, there seems to be, you know, a lot of parallels, because the near ritualistic nature of it, the way that she was, you know, vivisected essentially, and you know, and you know, of course, if you've ever seen the movie From Hell with Johnny Depp, anybody ever see that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the movie speculates as to who might be, you know, so it's hard to say who might have been. It could have been a random killing, but it has all the earmarks of something more sophisticated.
I know, like growing up, it was. I mean, I was a weird little kid who was always into, like, you know, death and like you know what I mean. I was a little morbid growing up. I enjoyed reading about, you know, violent incidences. The Black Dahlia death really caught my attention just on the brutality of it alone. You know, I mean, who could do that to somebody? That really has me fascinated. I mean, it's just so brutal and out there. How would I not be interested in that? If you really want to see the brutality of what happened to this girl, all you got to do is Google it. Now, I would recommend sending the little ones out of the room, but they're out there.
Didn't he decapitate Elizabeth
Well, he didn't decapitate her. He bisected her.
Bisected her. He cut her in half. Yeah,
and
not cut off her head.
He gave her the what we would refer to now as the Glasgow smile or the Joker smile.
Yes.
Wow.
Also, scooped out the vagina.
Right.
And made some kind of like cross cut on her stomach. I mean, she wasn't just like murdered. She was mutilated.
Wow.
Oh, God.
I mean, like something you would do to maybe a bug.
Wow.
You know, when you're 5 and you pull off. I mean, basically, she was a fly with her wings pulled off.
Wow.
It's just, horrific is the perfect word. I would like to find the spot where she was found, and maybe go there.
Was
also,
that in the desert somewhere? Or?
No, it was in L.A.
It was in L.A. Leimert Park.
Yep.
Oh, really? Wow.
Where's Leimert Park?
Not that far from the Cecil, right?
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
I
I didn't know that.
Well, there's rumors that I mean, again, this is speculation, that Elizabeth Short probably met her killer at the Cecil Hotel because she was there a lot.
And probably had a drink with them.
I mean, I don't know about that. I really don't know. Again, it's speculation, but that like the Cecil Hotel bar was her hangout.
She was also a waitress, so she rented a room behind the Florentine Gardens on Hollywood Boulevard, and she was also a waitress there. So she could have also met him while she was working, and as to be an aspiring actress as well, even though she didn't have any credits. But
that's probably when he said that I'm a famous producer. Let me put you in my next film.
Right.
That's probably a sinker, maybe. Who knows?
Well, I mean, she wasn't a bad looking girl. I mean, she for back in the day, she was very, very, very pretty.
Oh yeah, she was an actress, right?
Well, she was an aspiring actress. She was from where I'm from, which is Boston.
Medford, huh?
Yeah, that's probably a half hour from where I grew up.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, so November 1947, Robert Smith, 35, died after jumping from one of Cecil's 7th floor windows.
Robert Smith of The Cure?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's probably...
I was like, dude, how awesome would it be if Robert Smith of The Cure was actually the guy who did it, and the guy in The Cure now is just the ghost of this Robert Smith?
Nice.
Wow.
Are we onto something?
Wow.
Are we onto something, or
music,
or was it just
No.
too much coffee for Trevor today?
Like too much coffee.
Probably too much coffee for Treble.
Treble.
Treble. I know I've had too much coffee
I'm
too.
Treble Heasley.
He's
right.
a treble. On the notes, it says police yesterday identified the body of a man who fell from a 7th floor room of a hotel at 640 South Main Street as that of Robert Smith, 35, of Long Beach. So that's what the New York Times article said on November 1st, 1947.
Fell, jumped, tomato.
Right.
Interesting. So then October 1954, and then this is another 7th floor hotel plunge.
Are you talking about Margaret Brown?
Or Helen C. Gurney.
Helen Gurney. Yeah, she checked into the name as Margaret Brown, but her real name was Helen Gurney.
Yeah, she was an employee of a stationery firm. This one says San Diego stationery firm, but it's the things online that say a San Francisco stationery firm or an employee of a San Diego stationery firm. So those two things are out there.
We'll just say California stationery firm.
California stationery firm.
There you go.
So that's two jumpers.
Two jumpers
from the
7th
7th floor.
floor. And then her body landed actually on top of the hotel marquee above the heads of pedestrians on the busy Main Street.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. By that time, there was a lot of things going on at the Cecil Hotel. People started to notice that, the suicide numbers were high.
Right.
So the name for the Cecil Hotel in the 1960s was called Hotel Suicide. The Suicide Hotel. So even in Skid Row, people were starting to notice that something wasn't right with this particular hotel. With all the tragedy going on, with everything going on in America at that time, this one people were noticing was number one. So now that brings us up to the 1960s. What do we got from the 60s?
We got from the 1960s, longtime residents had begun to call the Cecil the Suicide. February 11th, 1962. Julia Frances Moore, 50, jumped from the window of the 8th floor and landed in a second-story interior light well. Moore did not leave a suicide note. Among her possessions were a bus ticket from St. Louis, 59 cents and change, and an Illinois bank book showing a balance of $1,800.
I mean, she wasn't broke. She had $1,800.
Yeah, I don't have $1,800.
In 19
$1,800 back in '62 was,
and that was a lot of money.
$1,800 was a lot of money in '62.
So maybe she did something for that $1,800 that she regretted.
I wonder. She jumped from the 8th floor. So this is now the 8th floor.
Who's to say she wasn't thrown out of it?
And she was a 50-year-old woman. So it's not like she was a young, dumb kid.
October 12th, 1962, Pauline Otten, 27 years old, jumped from the window of her 9th floor room after an argument with her estranged husband, Dewey. Now, Dewey had left the room prior to Otten's suicide. Otten landed on a pedestrian, George Giannini, 65, killing them both instantly. As there were no witnesses, police initially thought Otten and Giannini committed suicide together. However, it was soon determined that Giannini had his hands in his pockets at the time of his death, and he was still wearing shoes. Had he jumped, his shoes would have likely fallen off during the fall or upon impact.
Can you imagine just being outside of the hotel, maybe having a cigarette? And like, you're not suicidal, but suicide still kills you. Like,
You got the best news of your life that day.
I actually had this story in my head when we went to the Cecil. And I kept, is anybody,
Just like,
you know, like it actually had me a little worried that if this is like the suicide hotel, they should put like a little sign outside,
Maybe
like they have watch for falling rocks
Or just
falling
safety
bodies.
nets.
yeah.
You just get some safety nets. That's all they need.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you'd just have to be crazy if you're going to have a hotel with nets around it, and you're going to want to stay there or live there, don't you?
or hang
Like-
out in the front there with your hands in your pocket.
Yeah. Apparently, she had spoken to her husband
You had it coming.
earlier that day, and
So it was his fault.
she wanted to reconcile something. Her Otten and her husband were having issues, so she had tried to reconcile earlier that day at the sheet metal factory that he worked at, and so he ended up going to the hotel to discuss this reconciliation with her.
Oh, is that right?
Wow.
Interesting.
That's why she jumped.
Any info on the guy that got...
Well, originally, like they thought he committed suicide with her, that
Right.
Otten and Giannini were boyfriend and girlfriend, and it was a suicide pact. But like, if you jump off of a building,
Right.
your hands are not going to be in your pockets anymore. Like
Right.
the wind alone is going to rip your hands from their pockets. And most people, when they actually hit,
Right.
shoes and socks do most of the time, especially
Shoot off.
shoes, come off.
Right.
His shoes were still on, and his hands were still in his pockets. It took them a while to figure that out. I mean, that's really all I know about him, is that he was a kind of an innocent guy. He was an innocent victim of the hotel. I don't even know if he was staying at the hotel.
And he was an older man. I mean, she was 27, so like they probably weren't dating. He was 65 years old. And it's also just human instinct to not keep your hands in your pocket as you're free falling off of a building.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So next is the bird lover.
The bird lover. You're talking about Goldie Osgood?
June 4th, 1964, a retired telephone operator named Pigeon Goldie Osgood, who had been a long-term resident at the hotel, was found dead in her room.
Aw.
She had been raped,
Ooh.
stabbed, and beaten, and her room ransacked. A hotel worker discovered Pigeon Goldie Osgood dead in her room. She had earned her nickname because she fed birds in the nearby Pershing Square. Her Los Angeles Dodgers cap always she wore in a paper sack full of birdseed. Hours after her murder, Jacques B. Ellinger, 29, was seen walking through Pershing Square in blood-stained clothing. He was arrested and charged with Osgood's murder, but was later cleared of the crime. Osgood's murder still remains unsolved.
So where did the blood come from?
Like, whose blood was it?
Yes.
Yeah, there weren't a bunch of dead pigeons around, so you'd only assume that that he would do it. But why didn't they take the blood samples? You'd think that they'd have blood samples.
They didn't have that
matching.
technology.
They didn't have the sophisticated DNA that they
Yeah,
have
they didn't
today.
have all that back then.
This one kills me because
But why don't they go down back then?
I'm a huge fan of Home Alone 2. And I love the bird lady from Home Alone 2. So like my brain is putting that lady into this one. And like this is the story I think which makes me sad the most. December 20th, 1975, a still unidentified woman jumped from her 12th floor window onto the Cecil's second floor roof. She had registered at the hotel December 16th. That one's weird because I really haven't been able to come up with any other information that something happened there. Somebody landed on the second floor roof, and it happened December 20, 1975.
According to the Doe Network, on December 16, 1975, an unidentified woman between 20 and 30 checked into the Cecil under the name Allison Lowell and took room 327. On December 20th, she plummeted from a 12th floor window at the hotel onto the second floor roof. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office never identified the body. Investigators at the time had determined that she stood 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighed 118 pounds, had brown hair, and brown hazel eyes.
Nice.
They found scars on both of her wrists. The mystery woman's personal items consisted of a blue sweater with purple and black, navy blue pants, navy blue coat, black shoes, and a beige bra. On the dresser of her room, she left behind a black purse and a yellow metal key along with a Greyhound bus ticket from Bakersfield, California. I mean, she sounded like a stylish, woman who liked her colors, her color blue.
So in 1976, a guy named Jeffrey Thomas Paley, he terrified guests at the Cecil. He decided it would be an awesome idea to climb up to the roof, grab his rifle, and start shooting at people on the street. He claims that, again, like Dorothy Jean Purcell, has no memory of it, went up there, started shooting. He claims he didn't mean to hurt anybody, and he missed intentionally because he had to shoot, but he knew he didn't want to hurt anybody. He just wanted to show people how easy it would be for him to climb up on a roof and shoot people.
How did he terrify people? That's what I want to know, too.
If I'm staying at a hotel and I hear gunfire, yeah, I think I'd be a little terrified. Let's just get the hell out of here,
Oh, I thought he was some creepy dude in the beginning that was messing with the guests.
The problem with his defense of the involuntary thing is that, okay, so you had a gun, or was it a rifle?
It was a rifle, yeah.
Okay,
it was
so
a
you
rifle.
had a rifle. What would he be doing with a rifle in a hotel unless he had intention? So,
Right.
So if he didn't, quote unquote, know what he was doing, he knew what he was doing when he bought the gun.
This was a guy, too, who spent a lot of time in the mental hospital and was still able to go purchase a gun. This was in 1976, where you could still be a loony and go buy a gun.
Right.
But wait, I swear I heard you saying that he was terrifying the guests before, or is that just because of the rifle?
The terrifying the
By
guest
shooting.
was the rifle.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
he was. Yeah, I thought for some reason he would just kind of like go screaming
was-
down the hallways and stuff.
I just have this rifle here. I don't actually want to harm anyone. I just
Yeah.
want to scare people.
Yes.
Come on.
It'd be like me breaking into your house at 2 a.m, putting a knife to your throat, waking up and say, "Hey, James, this is how easy it would be for me to kill you. Are we still good, buddy?" And then like, have a good day.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you
Oh,
don't
that's
do
great.
that.
Security
Right.
check.
Right.
Security check,
Hello.
yo. That's actually, yeah, I don't know. Like a traumatizing security check to your friends. All right, so in the 1980s, there was Richard Ramirez, the serial killer nicknamed the Night Stalker.
I don't remember how many people he murdered, but it was like 18 or something like that.
Jeez. Wow.
And I remember having to lock our doors. It was like one of the biggest mass murders that most people of our generation know.
Ramirez had been a regular presence on the Skid Row area of Los Angeles, but according to a hotel clerk who claims to have spoken to him, is rumored to have stayed at the Cecil for a few weeks. Ramirez may have engaged in part of his killing spree while staying there.
Dude, I don't have any memories of Richard Ramirez when I was
Oh, my
growing up.
gosh,
I was
I do.
totally sheltered as a kid.
I had to be inside because I'd be skateboarding every night. And I had to be in by 7 o'clock, and my mom made sure that I was in at 7 o'clock because there was some crazy guy named the Night Stalker. We didn't know his name at the time, but he was the Night Stalker. And
My parents are like, "No, go outside and play. Go ahead,
Get
it's
out
fine.
there!
Go in the woods. It's cool."
So Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, he's believed to have committed his first murder in San Francisco in April of 1984. at the age of 24. And he continued his spree over the next year, mostly around LA, and he was living in room 1414 of the Cecil Hotel.
Wow.
That's something we need to go to.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
the 14th floor. His victims were men, women, and children, and were usually chosen randomly and killed in a variety of ways with whatever weapon he had handy. Often after sexual assault. Ew, children too?
What
That's just awful.
You know what? I need to do a little bit of research into that, but dude, what a scumbag.
Yeah, he's just a dirtbag.
Wow.
Was. Most reports suggest that he was influenced as a teenager by his cousin Mike, a Green Beret who bragged of committing horrific acts in Vietnam, and who later shot his wife to death in front of Ramirez. That's traumatizing, too, for somebody this guy.
Really traumatizing.
So the Night Stalker was ultimately caught after a rape victim who had been left alive got a look at his getaway car, a stolen Toyota that was found abandoned and connected to Richard Ramirez by a single fingerprint. Once they had a suspect, police broadcast his name and his face, and Richard Ramirez was recognized and beaten by a mob in East Los Angeles until he was finally caught in August of 1985. He was convicted in 1989 of 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries for his crimes. He was sentenced to death. His last words, "No big deal. Death always comes with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland."
Some of his victims were stored in the alley behind the Cecil.
On July 6th, 1988, the body of 32-year-old Terry Frances Craig was discovered by her brother in the Huntington Beach house the young woman had shared with her boyfriend, 28-year-old salesman Robert Sullivan. Craig had been brutally stabbed multiple times, and more than 2 months later, on September 8th, 1988, Sullivan was arrested at the Cecil and charged with murdering Craig, making him yet another person who sought refuge in this notoriously dark hotel. Strange.
Very strange.
Seemed like the like-minded people gravitated toward this place for some reason.
Hotel for some
Like
reason.
they
Maybe
want
they
to
felt
be
like
there.
they belonged there.
Yeah.
Speaking of people being drawn to the hotel, in 1991, another serial killer, Austrian Jack Unterweger, stayed at the Cecil, possibly because he sought to copy Ramirez's crimes. But while there, he strangled and killed at least 3 sex workers, which he was also convicted of in Austria. This is a guy who went to jail in Austria, wrote a bunch of books, became an upstanding citizen, came over to LA to cover crimes that he was committing. He hanged himself shortly after his conviction.
February 19th, 2013, the naked body of Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian student, was found inside one of the water supply tanks on the hotel roof. Lam had gone missing almost 3 weeks earlier on January 31st, 2013. Her decomposing body was discovered by a maintenance worker in one of the rooftop water tanks. After guests had complained about low water pressure and water that tasted funny. I'm sure it tasted pretty funny.
It took 3 weeks to find the body. It took a week for her to start decomposing. 2 weeks of complaining about foul-tasting water,
Ugh.
about foul-smelling water. People were drinking
That's
this
nasty.
water.
Yes.
That is nasty. Authorities later
Funny.
ruled Lamb's
Funny.
death as an accidental drowning. Video surveillance footage taken from inside an elevator shortly before her disappearance showed Lamb acting strangely, pressing multiple elevator buttons, hiding in the corner of the elevator, and waving her arms wildly, causing widespread speculation about the cause of her death.
Some people think she was playing the elevator game.
The elevator game is a paranormal game you have to play by yourself. You go to an elevator, hit a certain sequence, and halfway through it, if a lady enters the elevator, you're supposed to just turn around and look at the wall. If the elevator goes up, you are about to enter another dimension. If the elevator goes down, you go to the first floor and you get out of the building. You leave, you run, because they have not chosen you, and if you stay, they will harm you. But if they choose you, when you get off the elevator, you will see a reflection of a cross. You will be teleported to a different dimension. And that is the belief of what happened to Elisa Lam, was that she played the elevator game and lost. If you check out the footage of her in the elevator, she did not press the correct sequence of buttons.
Right.
So the elevator game is disproved.
Right, exactly. And
Fair
I've
enough.
heard that theory as well.
After the elevator video was made public, many theories arose about Lamb's death. She was reported to have had bipolar disorder, for which she was prescribed various medications, which could have contributed to her death, as well as her strange behavior in the elevator.
The water tank, according to the Cecil Hotel, the cover, it is solid metal. Elisa Lam weighed about 140 pounds, and it would have been, according to them, impossible for her to get in the water tank and close the lid behind her.
Jesus.
I would like to go to the water tank and see how heavy these lids actually are. Like,
Yeah.
could a
Yeah.
120, 140 pound woman actually do this?
Right.
200 pounds is really heavy.
Now, my theory on it, she was running from somebody. Because when you look at the elevator tape, she was running from somebody. She was yelling at somebody and kind of hiding. Even though she had mental illness, I believe that she was raped and thrown into the water tank after she was raped. Because when they found her, she was completely naked, her clothes floating to the side.
Have you ever had to tread water? She fell into a water tank, right? No ladders on the side. A 5-foot reach up. I don't know if you've ever been swimming, but you're not going to jump up 5 feet when your feet can't touch the ground.
No.
Right.
Now, if you've ever been a water treader, your clothes will weigh you down. If I had to tread water for more than 3 hours,
Right.
I'm stripping butt-ass naked too, because that's going to give me the highest chance of survival. My clothes are going to weigh me down. My shoes are going to weigh me down. Everything I'm wearing is going to weigh me down. If it's a chance between being modest or surviving, I'm butt-ass naked. There's been no evidence at this point to
Right.
find like any level of like rape or anything. But I believe the reason she was naked was because she had to tread for her life.
I'm just intrigued by the different dimensions, going into different dimensions, because if we're energy, like we're particles of energy,
Right.
and she's in a different dimension, who knows what she was experiencing before getting
Yes,
into that
right.
water
Exactly.
tank. All right, so moving on.
January 2014, Costin Alderete, a boy from Riverside, California, captured what he believed to be an apparition haunting from the outside of the 4th floor window of the notorious hotel.
So it's a little boy with his camera. He takes a photo. And, I mean, I totally see what he sees.
Oh, I totally see it too. And it was on the news too. They have news clippings of this that show his image, and it's so believable that it's a ghost.
I see how if you wanted to put a person there, you would absolutely see a person. But I would like to look at this photograph a little bit better and see what explanations I can come up with as like a graphics guy. What I'd kind of like to do is see if I can fake it. If I can come up with something comparable to that photo. That's the only way I can prove to myself that it's fake.
On June 13th, 2015, the body of a 28-year-old male was found outside the hotel. Now, some believe he may have committed suicide by jumping from the hotel, although a spokesperson for the county coroner informed the Los Angeles Times that the cause of death had not been determined.
How does the coroner, how do you not know whether someone jumped from the hotel and committed suicide or just collapsed?
I mean, I would think that
It would be obvious,
it would
right?
be obvious that the velocity of when hitting the pavement.
Because they're probably hiding something. I wonder if they're hiding something then, if you can't determine how somebody dies.
That could be too, but 2015, it's hard to hide stuff. And that place is loaded with cameras. There's no camera footage at all. When you got to the front, there were a ton of cameras.
That might have been installed when the new owners took over. Now,
Yeah.
new owners, a new corporation, around 2016 or 17, I don't know the exact date, they purchased the building for $100 million with intentions to raise it to the ground and start again. Unfortunately for them, Lloyd Lester Smith, the guy who designed the building, had become a famous architect designing multiple buildings in the Hollywood area and around the world. And he's somewhat of a celebrity in that circle. Because of that, the Los Angeles City Council in February 2017 voted to deem the Cecil a historic cultural monument.
So they can never get rid of it.
They cannot tear it down. So their goal now is just to renovate and open up in 2020.
Oh, Trevor.
Gosh.
Sorry about that.
What happened? Oh,
You burped.
Right in front
It
of
was an
Adrian.
accidental, like
Oh.
you know when it just happens, you're like, oh,
Oh,
I hope nobody noticed.
It was a guttural reaction.
It's a clutter stop.
Ooh, yeah, what a way to end the show. Thank you for listening to this edition of Knights of the Spooken Word.